This is a one-speaker meeting, and please welcome our speaker tonight, Laurie.
Thank you. Yikes. I'm Laurie. I'm an alcoholic. Laurie. Wow, I can barely see over this thing. Okay. Can you hear me? Am I in the microphone? Because I talk very softly. Thank you. Welcome to the newcomers, and I hope you hear something tonight that makes you want to come back, if not from me, from somebody else. It makes you want to come back to another meeting. And happy birthday. Thank you, birthday guys. You really set the tone for me of gratitude. I, too, am so grateful to be a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and to be sober today. And thank you, Josh, for inviting me. And I'm grateful to the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and in the process of recovery that's outlined in the book. And it works real well, and it's been working in my life for a little over 16 years. And for that, I'm very grateful. Geez, what do I want to talk about? I get to hold you all hostage for 40 minutes? And thank you to the Marina Center. Nowhere on earth do I get such a warm welcome, graciousness, and love. I feel so loved tonight coming in because I was nervous. Everybody I've known my whole sobriety is here. And that's kind of scary. So y'all have seen me, from angry newcomer and to growing into, and I'll say I love my life today. And that's a direct result of being here, being sober, and following the trail of breadcrumbs, one breadcrumb at a time that God has put in front of me. I want to talk about current. Let me get current for a minute and say, I just came from working all day and going to do my monthly service commitment, and it's a natural high, the natural highs we get around here, and for me, it's being a service to other, and I feel it's my responsibility, and to find out, if you're here long enough, to find out what those special gifts and talents, God-given gifts and talents are, because we all have them, and to use them to benefit others, use them to be of service to others. And, I hope that you stay here long enough to find out what those things are, and that you don't leave them on the seat when you leave, and you use them. Those are the natural highs. So, that's what I did earlier today. And this past weekend, Johnny mentioned, hi, Johnny. Johnny got me thinking, I'll start off and tell you where I am today and how perfect I am in recovery, that over the weekend, I copped a resentment on Saturday morning, and I'll tell you about it, because, the big book says, when we harbor resentments, we, that we can't, you can't, nothing good gets accomplished. Squander away hours that could have been worthwhile, right? And every resentment that I get, that's what it does. And so Saturday morning, I get, I'm in school, and I'm on this work team, this group project, and I get an email from one of our team members, and basically, there's no note that says no profanity here, right? It was a fuck you email, right? Fuck you to the group, and with nice words. And I spent the entire day Saturday night to Sunday morning drafting and redrafting and crafting my response, fuck you back, and the horse you rode in on, in nicer words, right? And everybody I spoke to on Saturday, I enrolled in that resentment, How you doing? Oh, I'm pissed off. And telling them the story, and so my resentments take on a life of their own. And what I found from doing inventory is that not only do I have to make amends to the person, that I'm pissed off at, that I've now caused harm, I have to make amends to all the people that I enrolled in the resentment because I caused them harm, right? So I did that. It was all day Saturday and Sunday morning, and then until somebody in the program called me Sunday morning. Now, I have learned restraint of pen, tongue, and fingertips. Don't send it, right? So I typed it out Saturday night, let me sleep on this. And Sunday morning, somebody in the program called, another one of my friends, how you doing? How's the weekend going? Well, I'm fucking pissed off, right? I went into the story and enrolled him in my resentment. And he said, I said, let me read you the email, and I was so caught up in it. I can't remember anything else that I did all day Saturday night, and into Sunday, because I squandered away all that time that I should have been working on this group project. That, did I even go to a meeting Saturday night? If I did, I wasn't present. I can't even tell you whether I did or didn't. I was wrapped up in my resentment. And he said, oh, Lord, you got to let that go. Let go and let God. My first response was, fuck that. I'm mad, And, that's where I was, really. And I read him the email and went and processed the whole thing. And, and then I finally got to 10th step, which looks like 2 parts on that wall, but it's actually five pieces to the 10th step. If you've read the book, continue to watch for resentment, fear, dishonesty. When these things crop up, or love, not if, when. We ask God to remove them at once, discuss it with somebody immediately, make amends quickly if we've harmed anybody, and turn our thoughts to someone we can help. 5 parts, real quick. So, sometimes it takes me, it will take weeks, and, to get into. But I have learned the restraint of especially the fingertips, because the last time I sent a fuck you email to somebody, I actually said fuck you in an email, and and sent it, and had to live with that, with the grief, and of course had to make an amends for it, and I still owe amends to all the people I enrolled in that one, so that's me, and with resentment today. Johnny. I don't want to waste, life. My time is so precious. That's the most precious thing I have today is my time, and I don't want to waste it on stuff like that. So we have a program to deal with anger, to deal with resentment, to get free of it, and when I choose to use it, it works, and it works perfect. So that was my weekend. That's me currently and today. And I'll go back because I know you. Everybody gets mad if I skip over what I was like, and so I'll tell you a little bit about where I came from. My sobriety date's October 10th, 1994. I had my first drink when I was about 12. I needed a drink when I was about 7. I was a stressed out little kid. I really could have helped, and I was born and raised in New York, and yeah. That says it all, doesn't it? But I know you all want to hear. All want to hear about it. So I drinking and using wasn't just a way of life for me. By the time I was 25, I did the geographic to get out of town there. But I got caught up in the nightlife, and the weekend. It was Friday, then it started on Thursday, then it was Wednesday, and then it went from Wednesday to Monday. The club scene, I was a cocktail waitress, I worked in nightclubs, and in New York, the bars closed at 4 o'clock. Actually, last call was at 4 o'clock. At 4:30, they locked the doors, and for those of us that were in the nightclub business, at 4:30, they locked the door from the inside. That's when the party really started. And you needed sunglasses to leave in the morning. And I lived on coffee and black beauties, to get by. And at 25, I was just beat up and wore out. I was a full-on alcoholic at that time, and I was tired. And so I did the geographic, and I brought myself and my disease with me. And wherever I go, there I am. And I came out to California thinking it would be different here. And I found the same bars, the same people, the pot dealer, the coke dealer. My favorite bar, which had a pot dealer, a coke dealer. Bartender knew my name. When I walked in, there was my drink with the napkin, and in front of my bar stool, there was a bookie in there, so you could drink, cop, bet on sports, and all from the same bar stool, and it was heaven. It was a great place. Then I moved 100 feet from the front door, so I never had to drink and drive, and I would look out from my balcony to see who was there, because I didn't want to miss anything. I could tell from their cars. And I always say, if I could have moved my bed into the, the back of that bar, because I lived there, I lived there in the last 4 years of my drinking and using. I lived next door to that bar, and the first 4 years of my sobriety. And that's when it got interesting. Let's see. Well, Jay's here. I just want to talk about, when I see you, I think about the era that I missed, the 60s. But when I started drinking and using, I missed the 60s. Ask Jay, Beatlemania, Woodstock, and all that civil rights movement, Kennedy in the White House, all the things that were happening in the 60s, and I'm obsessed with that era in time. But I was right on time for the 70s. That whole scene was the 70s and the 80s, and the 70s was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And it wasn't just say no, it was just say thanks, right? You all heard that. And it was on, there was no fear. It was, we did it, so I did all kinds of drugs. And there was great music during that period of time. So to get here at Alcoholics Anonymous, and in my first 90 days, to see, and Dave, don't give this CD out to everybody, okay? Eric Clapton, David Crosby, Dallas Taylor, Chuck Negron, Joe Walsh, Ringo Starr. I mean, that was enough for me. I'm like, this place is lame, and I started. I'm skipping all over the place. How I got here, but when I got to the meetings, I thought, man, this isn't going to work for me. And when I heard Dallas Taylor speak, that changed everything for me. Dallas Taylor spoke, and man, I swear I never heard him speak that way again, 16 years ago, and he spoke that night for me. Because everything he said was for me and to me, and then and David Crosby was there that night. Never saw him again in a meeting, but that was enough. It's kind of like David Crosby and Dallas Taylor here. This place isn't so bad, Maybe I can do this. But let me back up a minute because I skipped a big part. How I got here wasn't because I thought it was a good idea. I started going to emergency rooms. The drugs and alcohol and lots of cocaine and crystal meth, and it was just, my body was breaking down. My mind, still wanted to do it, but my body couldn't take what I was doing to it, and I ended up having a minor stroke and going to Brotman Hospital, and then 2 weeks later having a seizure and going to Cedars, and then a week after that ending up in Century City Hospital. I don't know why intuitively I knew to go to 3 different hospitals, but I did. And it's a good thing, but that last morning in the emergency room, it was on October 10th, it's 5 a.m. They had called in a neurologist to come see this young woman, and why is she having seizures? And he took one look at me, and he gave me the look like, we see people that, because we break people's hearts with what we do to ourselves. And I got that look from this doctor. And he said, everybody out, because my friends had brought me, and he said, you're an addict, you're an alcoholic, what kind of drugs are you doing? And I told the truth, and he said, he let me leave, and said, I should be reporting you to DMV, they'll take away your driver's license, you won't be able to get insurance, and it could make your life a real hassle, but I'm going to let you go, and hope I never see you here again. And he gave me his card, and asked me to follow up with him. And when I got my first chip for 1 year, I had that card. It was sitting on my dining room table for a whole year. And I sent him that chip, with a little note. Never saw him again, but I sent him a note saying, don't stop talking to people exactly the way you talk to me. Because if he had been nice to me and bought my bullshit, you'd have another speaker. I wouldn't be here. So that was another breadcrumb, and on this path. So I started coming to meetings, and meetings doesn't fix everything. That first 60 days, I remember being so uncomfortable, restless, irritable, discontent, and uncomfortable in my own skin. With no God, no steps, no program, no sponsor, no nothing but attending meetings and sitting in the back of the room, judging. you know, but knowing I had nowhere else to go. And I kept coming back. So I had physical sobriety, but, you know, emotional sobriety, and getting sober was really kind of the easy part. Learning how to live sober, that's been a lot of work. Yeah, so 60 days of being miserable around here. It's called untreated alcoholism, sober. You know, and I've been there a few times. But that time was very profound, because now if I get there, I know what the problem is, I know what the solution is, I can get into action. It was different. I didn't know. I didn't know really how sick I was, and I'm glad nobody told me, because I would have gave up. You know, it would have been too hard. So I did run into somebody who paths crossed, and you know, she decided to sponsor me without me knowing it, like, you know, one of those. I didn't ask her to sponsor me. She didn't say, I'll be your sponsor. She just said, come over to my house, bring your book, I'll help you. And that's kind of, you know, and she was my sponsor for 14 years. And when I showed up at her house, in fact, she lived a couple blocks from here. And this is my favorite part of that first year. I was supposed to meet her at 8 o'clock, and when I got to her house, she wasn't there. And the lights were dark and nobody was there, and I immediately copped a resentment, because that's a normal state for me, to be pissed off, you know. Oh, fuck this, you know, fuck this program, and what the hell happened, and why isn't she here, and blah, 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 you know. And so then I thought, you know what, maybe something happened, and at that time, no cell phones in those days, so I had to go down the street to the Vons shopping center here, and there's a phone booth on the wall, and I called my answering machine, because that's how we did things in those days, answering machines, and there was a message, 3 of them. One from her, one from somebody else, I don't remember who, and the third one was from my drug dealer. And he said, how you been? You know, it was like, I haven't heard from you in a while. Yeah. It'd been 62 days since he had heard from me. I knew exactly how long it had been. And her message said, she's been detained at work, keep yourself busy, and I'll be, you know, for half an hour, I'll be there at 8:30. Okay. It was only like 5 after 10, so I had some time to kill, and I decided to call the dealer back and I made the phone call from the phone booth and called him. And I slipped right into addict, alcoholic, talking to her dealer mode. And anybody listening and watching could see everything about me change, you know. And I had this conversation with him, and while I was there was a line forming, people waiting for the phone while I'm doing this. And I'm laughing with him, trying to be hip, slick, and cool, and crying, and laughing, and holding back the tears. And I hung up the phone with him, and burst into tears, and started, you know, walking towards my car. And this guy who was standing behind, standing behind me, had been listening, followed me, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, "What's the matter? Why are you crying?" You know, and I'm like, for some reason, what came out of my mouth is, "Do you know anything about drugs and alcohol?" And and he said, "As a matter of fact, I do. Sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've been sober for 8.5 years." And you are? Really? And you know, and we talked for what seemed like an hour went by, and everything stopped. 5 minutes, you know. He said, "Well, you know, oh yeah." I showed him my chip. I got 62 days. I'm on my way to meet this woman, and blah, blah, and all the meetings I had gone to. "Oh, make sure you go to this meeting, and make sure you go to that meeting, and see, I know the secretary there, and you know, and he just turned me around. Another breadcrumb. In that moment, just turned me around. And that man's name, I never used to mention him, but now I mention him all the time. That man's name is Flo, and you know, Flo L, and a lot of you know him. He's still sober, and warms my heart every time I see him, because he was like my angel. And it turns out Flo was at the grocery store buying diapers for his baby. He was online calling his wife to find out what kind of diapers to buy. And that's how our cross paths. And that's how God works. He puts the right person in the right place at the right time to cross paths exactly when we need him. Sometimes that happens. That happens sometimes where I'll never see the person again, or don't know the person. The message will come from somebody I don't know. But you know. And I went all over Alcoholics Anonymous, all over the West Side for the next 6 months looking for Flo. And I finally found him 6 months later. But anyway, I got to my sponsor's house at 8:30, skipping through the door. You'll never guess what just happened to me. And she said, "Was it a God shot?" And I said, "I don't know about no God shot, you know." But here's the story. Let me tell you what happened. Yeah. So, and yeah. So, and I told her what happened, and she said at about 7:45, when I realized I was going to be late, I stopped and prayed. I asked God to take care of you until I could get there, and I knew that He'd do something, I just didn't know what. And, you know, and kind of, oof, my mouth dropped, and I just said, "Who is this God? Where did you find Him, and how do I get one? You know, I want one like that, the one that you have." And for the longest time, I prayed to Rachel's God, because I didn't believe I could have my own. But she said, "He's big enough for both of us." And that night, we opened up the book. We started going through it, a word at a time, a line at a time, a page at a time. And I went back to her house the next night, said, "I'm coming back tomorrow." You know, and she told me that night, "But how do I start? Where do I start?" Put God in the passenger seat. When you drive home, take Him home with you. When you get home, put God in the chair. And, you know, when you wake up in the morning, put God in the chair again and talk to Him. When you go to work, take Him with you. And that's what I started doing. I still have an empty director's chair in my bedroom, and that is God's chair. And I put God in the chair. And in the early days, the same director's chair, I've had it a long time, and I used to pull it up to the edge of the bed, you know, so there it was. Oh yeah, put God in the chair. Some people put the shoes under the bed, you know, what this was what I did. And, you know, by the end of the week, I made the 3rd step decision, started doing inventory. A couple of months later, I did my 5th step with her and went through the steps in 6 months. And by the time I ran into Flo, he didn't even recognize me. He didn't even recognize the, you know, it was a brief memory of that little encounter, you know, with me. But that's, you know, God shots, and my life has been a series of them. One after another after another. They're going on even when I'm not paying attention to them. But it's really great when I'm watching for them and I see them and I get to share them. And, oh, you know, and God makes Himself known by doing these little things. So that's been, you know, the, you know, the goal today is spiritual, to stay in spiritual condition, you know, and stay connected to this power. I get disconnected, but I have a path to get back on track. And from that moment on, and I don't know when or how, but once I started working the program, the obsession left. You know, there was no, you know, and I really haven't looked back. You know, and I've gotten to do a lot of things. One of the things I've done consistently is I show up, and I'm at meetings, and I'm of service, and I help others, and I put the oxygen mask. Where's Eric? You know, put that on me first. You know, Eric tells his sponsees all that, take care of yourself first so you can be of service to others. I'm no good to anybody else unless I'm taking care of me, you know. So I work the steps so I can be, you know, be an example. And I share all my stuff. You heard about my resentment. I share all my stuff because really I'm of no service to anybody else if I'm, you know, I'm trying to be perfect. You know, you want to see the program in action, watch somebody work it. We don't do it graciously, we don't do it gracefully, and we don't do it perfectly. If you're doing it, you know, you watch, you know, I skip and stumble and fall and, you know, all of that stuff. And that, to me, you know, and that's how my sponsors taught me more from sharing with me her mistakes than she has with how, you know, how she, you know, she'll bring me a problem and kind of go, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is how I'm working the program through it. And then when she gets to the other side, it's like, wow, I can do that, you know. So, you know, my life today has built up. Where I am right now, you guys don't see me. I'm not as visible as I used to be. I'm not at meetings all the time because I'm in college. And, you know, for those of you that had the chance to graduate from high school and go off to college, that's not a big deal. But for me, who came to you at 33 years old without a high school diploma, it's a big deal. What a precious gift. And, you know, and for years, prior to that, I used to tell myself, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, it's too hard, you don't deserve it, it's too expensive, you can't do it. All these things. Nobody told me that. This is what I used to tell myself, and it was fear that kept me from doing it. And then I saw my sponsor go back to college. He'll go back. Now, me, I went to college for the first time. She went back to school and, finished school, and, and she was in her 50s. I really had no excuse at 40 years old to, get the GED and apply and go to my first class. And how do I do school? One class at a time, one day at a time. I use the program. I show up early. I sit in the front. I do the work. I ask for help. All these little simple things that are, one day at a time, one class at a time. That's how I do school. So really, it's great. The principles, the discipline, and everything I learned here, I apply everywhere. But especially there, I really see it in my schoolwork. And I love it. I walk around with I got a little backpack and a pencil bag and a little pocket. Yeah, that pencil bag, one of my sponsees bought me, and a little pocket dictionary and thesaurus, and I walk around the campus and just breathe in and go, wow, look at how lucky I am. I get to do this. Now, when y'all catch me when I'm going crazy out of my mind, how hard it is, and I'm asking myself, why am I doing this? It wasn't meant to be easy. If it was, everybody would do it. And, and so I struggle through. One day at a time, I only have to do one more thing today. I just got to worry about this paper, this project, read this chapter, whatever it is for today. And so I have to simplify my life and bring it back down to another simple principle that we learned here. One day at a time. So there's school, there's work, and most important is being of service. That comes first in my life. If what I have, the other people are not benefiting from it, I'm missing the whole point. I'm missing it. So, find something. Find out what your gifts and talents are and use them. Whether it's chairing a convention, being on the bylaws committee, being on the board of directors here at the Marina Center, or the most important commitment in the whole room, and that's that guy back there making the coffee, my opinion. Thank you, because I really needed a cup of coffee when I got here. That's me, and I've done all of it, and as busy as I am, I have 2 meeting commitments now that I show up for no matter what. I don't care what school projects or whatever else is going on and what kind of fuck you emails I'm getting from my groups, my service commitments come first, and it feeds me, and it's changed me for the better. But it's start off one day at a time. Getting sober is first. Learning how to live sober, that takes some time. And like I said, I love my life, and if you don't love your life, you can do something about it. We have tools, you can change it. They told me, and that's, you all told me. Why am I in college? Because you all told me I could. You all said you can do anything you want. Don't let fear keep you from doing anything. And, and I didn't get there a day too soon. I wasn't ready. I had a lot of lessons to learn before I was ready to go there. Now, I think back now, and I'm the oldest person in the class, which really sucks. I'm not older than the professors, thank God, but I'm older than all the students. Yeah, and then, what am I going to do with it? Maybe nothing. Maybe I'll go on and get a PhD. Who knows? Who knows? But the point is, I wanted to go to college, and I got to go to college. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. But I hope you newcomers stick around. Stick around and stay and just tough it out, because it gets rough. It gets rough here sometimes. Yeah. The times that I'm really I'm uncomfortable, not wanting to be here at the beginning. But I fell in love. I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous. What else did I want to say? Because I had no time, no time I've been going. The first 5 minutes that I've had to rest in the last week was sitting in that chair, hearing how it works, which is music to my ears. Yeah. Oh, let me talk about amends for a minute. There's resentments, and then there's amends. I continue to do inventories. The first inventory was the biggest deal, because I had 186 resentments on that first list. Second inventory I did, I had another 180 something. So I had a lot. In 30 years, man, anyone that I ever came across, it seemed like, pissed me off and made my list. And then when I got here in my first 6 months, half of you made my list, really pissed me off. But what came out of that first inventory is I hadn't talked to my mother in 10 years. I had no relationship with her. She was dead to me, and I wrote her off. And what came up in the inventory, when, putting out of our minds the wrongs that others had done, we looked for our own mistakes. What did I do to cause or contribute to the situation? So for the first time ever, I looked at not what she did to me, but what I did to her. And what I did to her was so much worse than anything she did to me, because I intentionally set out to hurt her for 10 years by ignoring her. And she never stopped trying, sending me cards and letters and gifts and phone calls. She never stopped trying to be my mother. I had done all that. That was a tough one, to accept and to look at. But when I owned it, it's like, okay, I sat with it for a while. I prayed about it. I talked to my sponsor about it. How do you make this right? How do you make something like that right? And what came to me, I don't know, it just came to me. I sat down and I picked up the pen and I started writing, and I wrote my mother a very long letter and thanked her for everything she ever did for me. Acknowledged all the things that I had, that was where I was just like her, and all the things I had acquired, and all the things about me that were like her, and just gave her something I had withheld for 10 years, acknowledgement. And I read it to my sponsor first, because that's what I was directed to do, and she cried and said, your mother's going to cry when she reads that. She said, put it, send it. I put it in an envelope, put the stamp on it, mailed it, and I was free. And I can't tell you today what the hell I was so mad at for 10 years. Because, and I hated her for as long as I could remember. And I could have told you all of, in detail, and it's just gone. When a resentment goes, that's how it's supposed to go. You're not supposed to be reliving it. And what a powerful gift. And then shortly after that, my mother and I started a brand new relationship. There was no fixing the old one because it was fucked up. But we started something new. And for the last, I would say that was about 15 and a half, almost 16 years ago, I got my mom back in my life. And we have a good relationship. And if you had told me, work the steps and you'll get that, I probably would have said no thanks. So the point is, you don't know what God's got in store for you. You don't know what he's got planned. Follow the trail of breadcrumbs, and you don't know what you're going to come across. If you're open and willing and really have an open mind, you don't know what you're going to get. And that was just one of the many, many blessings. But that was a big one. It's like, wow, this thing's powerful. It works. I call her all the time. There's no baggage. There's no anger. There's no resentment. There's nothing. We have this beautiful relationship. And the flip side to that is I could be making a graveside amends because I could have missed that. I could have missed out. And my dad, I got to, I had a good relationship with him and got to make an amends to him. And there was a time when, I was his little girl, I was Daddy's little girl for the longest time, and then there was a time, because he saw me in my disease, where I couldn't look him in the eye, he couldn't look me in the eye. I would look down at my feet. When he was yelling at me, he yelled at me all the way from Long Island to Kennedy Airport, telling me how ashamed he was at my behavior. And at the end, I was 10 years sober when he was sick and he was dying, and at that time he said, he said he was proud of his daughter. To go from there to there, is that's God. Only God can do that. So my father died peaceful, knowing he didn't have to worry about me, that he wasn't going to get a phone call from what the hell is his crazy daughter doing out in Los Angeles, and he didn't have to worry. For 10 years he had peace. And thank you, Alcoholics Anonymous, for that. My time is just about up. Josh is wiggling around. Okay, thank you for letting me share.